The settlement of Virelia was quiet under the dim light of the twin moons. Most of the buildings were rough, built from salvaged metal and stone, and the streets were filled with shadows. The air carried a mix of metallic tang and dust, and a cold wind swept through the alleys. In one corner of the settlement, a small dwelling barely large enough to stand in, a young alien girl sat shivering. Her stomach growled loudly, echoing through the empty room. Her name was Leora. She hugged her thin frame, her glowing eyes staring at nothing, lost in her hunger. Her older sister, Serena, sat beside her on a low crate, brushing a strand of Leora's pale hair from her face. Leora's tears glistened under the moonlight, making her luminescent skin shine softly. I'm hungry, she whispered, her small voice trembling. I can't wait anymore. Serena's chest tightened. She hated hearing those words. Hunger had become a cruel companion for them. Since their parents had died during a supply raid years ago, the sisters had survived alone, relying on their wits and small scavenging skills. Food was scarce. Water was sometimes contaminated. The humans who had recently arrived in their sector were both a threat and a lifeline. Some brought supplies and technology, but they demanded payment. And in a place where credits and resources were rare, survival often demanded hard choices. Serena tried to stay calm. She didn't want Leora to see her fear. Don't worry, Leora, she said softly. I will find a way to get food. I promise. She looked around their small room. The floor was dusty, the walls scratched and dented. There was almost nothing left to eat. Just a few dried leaves from the plants they had tried to grow. She sighed quietly. I'll do whatever it takes, she whispered to herself. Evening fell and the settlement grew quieter as most aliens retreated to their homes. The humans, however, were still moving in the outer districts. Traders in sleek suits walked the streets, scanning for valuable items, while some rougher humans carried weapons, hunting or intimidating the locals. Serena had been watching them for days, trying to understand their patterns, hoping to find an opportunity. Finally, as darkness settled fully, Serena made her decision. She couldn't let Leora suffer any longer. She left the small room quietly and walked through the narrow streets toward the human traders' camp. Her footsteps were cautious. She had no idea how the humans would respond, but hunger had sharpened her courage. At the camp, a human trader named Corvan was reviewing some shipments under a bright artificial light. He was tall, with broad shoulders and armor that reflected the moon's light. Serena's heart pounded, but she walked forward, keeping her head low. I need your help, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Corvan looked at her with raised eyebrows. And what do you offer? He asked. His tone was calm, but there was curiosity behind it. Serena hesitated. The words she needed to say were terrifying but necessary. For my sister, I will serve you, she said. Her words hung in the air. Anything, as long as she has food. Corvan's eyes studied her carefully. There was strength in her stance, even though her body was small and fragile. Serve me, how? He asked, leaning back slightly. Serena looked down. She knew the humans didn't understand alien customs or the sacrifices between siblings, but she had no choice. My service will be whatever you require, she said carefully. I only ask that my sister is fed and safe. I beg you. Corvan didn't speak for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I see, you're brave. Or desperate. He gestured for her to follow him. Very well. We will make an arrangement. Serena's heart beat rapidly. She glanced back at the settlement, thinking of Leora waiting alone. She had made a choice that would change both their lives forever. When Serena returned to the small dwelling with food, Leora ran to her, her small hands grabbing at the bags. Food, you got food, she exclaimed, tears of joy streaming down her face. Serena knelt, letting Leora hug her tightly. Yes, Leora. You'll eat. You'll be safe. She didn't tell her sister the full details of her promise, not yet. Leora's relief was enough for now. As the night deepened, Serena was escorted by Corvan to his ship. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. Metal walls, blinking lights, and the faint hum of energy running through the hull. She realized how small and isolated their settlement was compared to the humans' technology. Her chest tightened, not with fear of the ship, but with the knowledge of the life she was about to live. Inside the ship, she met others, some humans, some aliens, who were part of the trader's crew. They looked at her with curiosity, and some with suspicion. Corvan explained her situation briefly, and her role became clear. She would work with them, assisting in tasks that required her skills and knowledge of the local area. In return, Leora would receive food and protection. At first, the work was overwhelming. The corridors were narrow, the machines strange, and the humans spoke in a language that Serena barely understood. But she adapted quickly. Hunger had sharpened her mind and body. She learned to operate the machines, to communicate with the crew, and to negotiate small matters on behalf of the humans. Every day she survived, she thought of Leora, her small face and shining eyes, and it gave her strength. Back in the settlement, Leora thrived under the new supply of food. Her energy returned, and she explored the small area around their home with curiosity. She watched the stars, wondering about the world beyond the settlement. She had not yet fully understood what her sister had done, but she knew that Serena had saved her life. Weeks passed. Serena learned more about the humans' customs and technology. She began to see the humans not only as threats but also as potential allies. They were different, yes, but they were not cruel without reason. Corvin, in particular, began to trust her judgment and often sought her opinion on matters concerning the local alien population. One evening, as the twin moons reflected on the ship's polished metal walls, Serena stood at a viewport looking at the settlement far below. Leora's small figure could be seen moving among the shadows, laughing as she played with other children. Serena's heart ached with longing but also swelled with pride. She had made the hardest choice of her life, and it had saved her sister. Corvin approached quietly. "You care for her deeply," he said. Serena nodded. "She's all I have left. I would do anything for her." Corvin considered this, then nodded. "And you will. I see that." Serena spent the night planning her next moves. She wanted to ensure Leora's future was secure. She learned the humans' trade routes, gathered supplies, and slowly began to bridge the gap between the settlement and the traders. Each small success gave her hope. She realized that the act she had feared, the sacrifice of herself, was not an end but a beginning. At dawn, the first light of the twin suns crept over the horizon. Leora awoke to a table full of food, her face lighting up in joy. Serena smiled at her, tired but determined. "Eat, Leora, you are safe now, and we will stay safe, together." The settlement was changing slowly, influenced by the humans' technology and Serena's guidance. The fear that had dominated their lives was giving way to cautious optimism. And through it all, the bond between the two sisters grew stronger, forged in the fire of sacrifice, love, and the desire to survive. Serena knew that challenges lay ahead. Humans were still unpredictable, and the settlement still faced scarcity and danger. But she had faced the impossible once and survived. She could face it again. And Leora, now strong and healthy, would grow up knowing that the love of family could withstand even the harshest trials. The stars above Veralia shone silently, witnesses to the courage of one sister who had chosen to protect another at all costs. Serena took a deep breath and turned back to her work, determined to make the promise she had made last for as long as it took. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in her life, hope felt real, and somewhere far above the humans watched, intrigued by this alien who had dared to act with courage, compassion, and intelligence. Serena's actions were not just survival. They were proof that even in the cold void of the universe, acts of love and bravery could shine brighter than any star. Serena had adjusted to life aboard the human trader's ship far quicker than she had expected. Each day brought new challenges, new machines, and strange customs, yet she faced them with determination. Every task she learned was another step toward securing Leora's future. Hunger had forced her to become resourceful, and now she applied that resourcefulness to navigating human systems, trade routes, and supplies. From the viewport of the ship, she often watched Veralia slowly shrink below her. The settlement where she and Leora had grown up seemed smaller, almost fragile against the backdrop of the dark planet. She felt a pang of guilt at the distance between her and her sister, but she reminded herself that her decision had saved Leora. The girl was now safe, well-fed, and learning to thrive. Corvin, the human trader who had arranged the agreement, watched Serena from across the control room. "You're good at this," he said, his tone both curious and approving. "Better than most humans, even." Serena glanced at him and nodded, trying not to let pride show. "I have to be," she replied softly. "I'm doing this for someone I love. That gives me strength." Corvin raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He had seen acts of loyalty before, but rarely ones that were so fierce and unwavering. It reminded him of humanity's greatest trait, the willingness to endure anything for those you care about. And now in this alien girl he saw that same spark. Meanwhile, on Virelia, Leora's life had changed dramatically. No longer did she have to worry about finding food or clean water. She played with other children in the settlement, but she always kept a small space in her heart reserved for her sister. Every day she waited by the small communications panel Serena had helped set up, hoping to catch a glimpse of her sister or hear her voice. When Serena's messages arrived, Leora's face lit up like the twin moons. She could sense her sister's courage even through the cold glow of a screen. One day, as the ship hovered above the settlement, an urgent message arrived. A band of raiders had been spotted near the outskirts, threatening the fragile peace of the settlement. Leora, who had been playing nearby, was at risk. Serena's heart pounded as she listened to the report. She knew she had to act fast. Without hesitation, Serena coordinated with Corvin and the human crew. Using the ship's sensors and equipment, they created a plan to divert the raiders without putting the settlement in direct danger. Serena guided small supply drones to the area, creating false signals and drawing the raiders' attention away. Her knowledge of the settlement, combined with human technology, allowed them to protect the people without bloodshed. When Leora saw the drones hovering above, shining lights on the approaching raiders, she understood that her sister was watching over her. Even from afar, she felt a surge of pride and gratitude, realizing that Serena's courage was not just in words but in action. That night, as the moons reflected off the settlement rooftops, Leora whispered a small prayer of thanks for her sister. Days later, Serena returned to the settlement on a brief mission to deliver supplies. She was greeted with cautious curiosity by the locals. Many had heard rumors of the human trader's ship and the strange alien who worked alongside it. They watched as Serena moved confidently through the streets, her presence a symbol of hope. Leora ran into her sister's arms, hugging her tightly. "I was so scared," she said, tears welling in her eyes. "I didn't want anything to happen to you." Serena held her close. "I'm here now," she said softly, "and I will always find a way to keep you safe." Leora nodded, understanding more than words could express. She was learning what it meant to survive with someone you could trust completely. Over the following weeks, Serena worked tirelessly to build connections between the humans and the settlement. She introduced small improvements, better water filtration, basic medical supplies, and new methods of food preservation. The settlers were cautious at first, but gradually they began to see the benefits. Children who had once gone to bed hungry now slept well, and families who had been fearful of raiders found new confidence in their community. Leora watched these changes with fascination. Her eyes sparkled as she explored the small improvements around her home. She followed Serena closely, absorbing every lesson, every word of advice. Serena encouraged her curiosity, teaching her how to think critically, how to observe human technology, and how to make smart choices. In a short time, Leora became resourceful in her own right, showing that the younger generation could grow strong even under hardship. One afternoon, Serena stood with Corvin as they watched the settlement's children play in a newly built park-like area, created from repurposed materials. "You've done more than I expected," Corvin said. "You've turned survival into growth." "That's rare." Serena shook her head. "It's not me alone," she replied. "The people here, and my sister, they gave me the reason to do it." "That's what matters," Corvin nodded thoughtfully. He had seen countless species struggle, but rarely had he encountered such pure motivation. He realized that Serena's choices were not simply survival tactics. They were a testament to the power of love and family. Meanwhile, Leora was growing quickly. She was no longer the frightened, hungry girl who had cried in the small room weeks before. She laughed, explored, and helped other children, sharing the food and knowledge Serena had helped bring. She had learned from her sister's bravery, and it shaped her into a young alien who could face the world without fear. One evening, the settlement celebrated a small festival, a harvest of sorts. Though the food was modest, it was more than anyone had expected. The humans provided assistance, but it was Serena who had organized the event, ensuring that the community felt safe and cared for. Leora danced under the twin moons, her laughter bright and clear, while Serena watched from the edge of the gathering, a quiet smile on her face. Corvin approached her then, leaning against a crate. "You've changed things here," he said softly. "And not just for your sister. You've given everyone hope." Serena looked at the crowd, families, children, and elders all sharing smiles and conversation. "Hope is worth more than anything else," she replied. "Even my own comfort." In the weeks that followed, Serena continued to act as a bridge between humans and aliens. She learned more about trade, technology, and diplomacy. The settlers began to understand that survival could be more than just enduring hunger and fear. It could mean building something better. Leora never strayed far from her sister. She was growing stronger, but she still needed guidance. Serena encouraged her curiosity, teaching her how to think for herself, how to plan ahead, and how to face dangers with intelligence rather than panic. Leora thrived, gaining confidence with every passing day. Then one day, an unexpected challenge arrived. A larger human trading convoy entered orbit above Virelia, bringing advanced technology and supplies, but also competing traders who were not interested in helping the settlement. They demanded that resources be handed over or risk destruction. The settlers panicked, unsure of how to respond. Serena acted quickly. Using her knowledge of both humans and the settlement, she negotiated with the newcomers. She demonstrated the value of working together rather than taking by force. She showed them that cooperation could lead to better outcomes for everyone. Slowly, the rival traders agreed to a limited trade arrangement, impressed by the clarity and courage of Serena's actions. Leora watched in awe as her sister stood before the humans, confident and unwavering. She realized that Serena's choice to protect her had not only saved her life, but had also set an example of leadership, bravery, and compassion. She wanted to be like her sister someday, strong enough to make difficult choices and brave enough to face the consequences. As the weeks turned into months, the settlement began to flourish. Food was abundant, technology was improving, and the people felt safer. Serena and Leora's story became a quiet legend among the inhabitants, a tale of sacrifice, love, and courage. Humans and aliens alike began to recognize that even in a harsh and indifferent universe, acts of selflessness and intelligence could change everything. One evening, as the twin moons rose high above the settlement, Serena knelt beside Leora. "Do you know why I made the choice I did?" she asked. Leora shook her head, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Because I love you," Serena replied simply. "And because sometimes love means making the hardest choice. It doesn't matter if it's scary. It matters that you survive and grow strong." Leora smiled, hugging her sister tightly. "I understand now. And I want to be strong too, like you." Serena kissed her forehead, feeling a deep sense of pride and hope. The human trader Corvin watched quietly from a distance. He understood now what made humanity, and some of the most remarkable aliens like Serena, different. It was the courage to protect, to sacrifice, and to inspire others. It was the spark that could turn despair into hope, weakness into strength, and fear into opportunity. And on Virelia, under the twin moons, two sisters continued to grow, live, and thrive. One had made the ultimate sacrifice to ensure the other's survival, and the younger had learned from it. Their bond was unbreakable, a shining example of love, bravery, and intelligence in a universe that often seemed indifferent. Serena knew there would be more challenges ahead. Humans were unpredictable. Raiders still lurked in shadows, and the settlement would continue to need guidance. But she also knew that